If, like me, you have suffered with the inability to be able to focus for extended periods of time on whatever you want to be able to focus on, whether it's something you know you need to do, even if you don't want to do it, and even sometimes stuff that you really desire to do, you still just seem to not be able to focus on it for more than 20 minutes or an hour at a time, and you want to be able to do this thing for an entire day or at least a couple hours or a few hours at a time. And this is something that maybe for you, but especially for me, I've suffered with most of my life. And depending on how you label it, like, depending on how you label it, it could be that you are suffering with it, or it could be that it is something that you just want to work out how to use the negative side of it to your advantage and actually use whatever is kind of holding you back as a kind of superpower to be able to take advantage of in other areas of your life. And this is exactly what I've been doing recently. And over the past year, I have been more focused on trying to work out how to fix procrastination, how to work on being more disciplined and improve my self control, and all of these areas in life that generally just improve your life. And when I first entered the self help space, officially speaking, around 4 years ago, kind of the end of 2020, I was more focused on the personal finance side, learning about the banking system, how credit worked, all this sort of stuff, and learning a lot of lot of stuff from Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki content. And only really in 2022 into 2023, I started diving more into the actual kind of personal side of self help, which is learning more about yourself. Understanding habits. It's when I bought the book Atomic Habits. I was watching more book summaries because I was a terrible reader anyway. I bought a couple of books, but it was mainly audio book summaries and watching, audio, book summaries and listening to Audible type of things. But over the past like 6 or 7 months, nearly a year or so actually, I've really been trying to focus on how to stop procrastinating, how to focus on things, and I've made videos on this before, but it wasn't until very recently that I was kind of finally nailing it. And weirdly enough, because of reading about atomic habits, and if you've read about it before, you'll understand that environment shapes a lot of our habits. And there's a great story on this actually. It was the U.S. soldiers in the Vietnam War, and a lot of them were taking heroin, I believe, in the war in Vietnam. But when they came back, they didn't take it anymore. And the study showed and proved that the kind of research into this, into what happened and the amount of soldiers that took heroin while they were in Vietnam and when they came back they didn't take it anymore, was because of the environmental change, because of the fact that if you completely switch up your environment, you're less likely to do the things that you were doing in that environment. And it's why in the book Atomic Habits, it's all about setting activities up in specific environments, which is kind of why I have this kind of deep rabbit hole, kind of convoluted idea of, why the more impoverished areas of the world are typically smaller and are more confined to smaller spaces, and the more lavish parts of the world have much larger spaces. But that's a whole other story and kind of the way the world type of works, type of thought process and opinion about it all. But anyway, talking about habits and environment, your environment is a massive part of that. And the study about the Vietnam soldiers, the US soldiers in Vietnam certainly proved that. But one thing I've really been focusing on now is kind of taking this approach. It's almost like business approach of like the kind. I think it's like a Charlie Munger approach of like using the opposites. Well, actually, it might even be a Warren Buffett approach. But as Charlie Munger passed away recently, it's good to kind of mention him in this. Is that I think it was about using the opposites to figure out how to actually make the most effective thing, the most effective strategy. Figure out your priorities. And so when it comes to yourself and not just your business, I was trying to work out just how do I be more focused. I've always lacked focus. I've always struggled with procrastination, and the same with many people like yourself may have, especially if you've clicked on this. So the one thing I tried to finally do is, especially once I changed my environment and moved out very recently, I was then thinking about, well, instead of always looking at the same old problems and trying to figure it out based off the same old questions, let me flip the switch. So as I have been working on my beliefs as well and limiting and negative beliefs, I've just been looking into my habits and the habits I have and the habits of the type of questions you ask yourself to try and fix habits as well, because that's an important thing. It's important to become aware of the questions you're asking to try and fix the habits that you have, whether they're good or bad. So for me, what I then did is I flipped the question, just like the Warren Buffett business question. If you don't want to, I think it's a Warren Buffett quote anyway. It's like if you don't, um, if you want to make something work, if you want to make the best thing, what's the opposite of the best thing? Look at what wouldn't you do, and then do the opposite of what you wouldn't do, because naturally we're kind of instinctually survival based animals. So we want to look at the thing that we don't want to do. The thing that we don't want to do is much easier to find the thing that we do want to do. It's why marketing is always normally fear-based. News is fear-based for most of the thing. It's because we pay attention to the survival and how to not die more than how to thrive. So if you want to learn how to thrive, learn not just how to survive. Learn the opposite of just survival, which not in the case of death, but in terms of thriving. So in this case, with habits and with just learning about being more productive, it's like, okay, well, let me flip it. Let me flip the switch. Let me flip the question. So if I wanted to be productive, how would I not be productive? I know how to answer that question. I know all the things not to do, because practice what you preach for the entire time. I've been talking about this stuff for ages now. I've been trying to tell myself all of this stuff for a long time. I've been talking to people in a Discord server for over a year about it. And it's true, you just need to try work on this stuff and work out the best ways for it. So finally now, asking myself, what would I do if I didn't want to do it? And asking myself the opposite, I actually almost came up with what I think may be my own formula, but maybe it's just taking aspects of all of these areas and putting it into my own formula for myself. And this is what I wanted to share with you today. Is I technically call it the CNC formula, and it's three different areas which kind of go across multiple areas in terms of if you're struggling with tasks, if you're trying to be productive, that is, and you lack the focus with tasks, in terms of building new habits as well, which can be part of new tasks, but also just for various aspects of your life, because it might be personal tasks, it might be business tasks, it might be trying to improve your self-improvement with workouts or with business tasks or activities you need to do but don't necessarily desire to do. And overall, it's just about figuring out maybe limiting or negative beliefs you have towards trying to do the things in general. So, like, you might be trying to work on building good habits for your personal life and for business life, but you're also trying to work out why you don't want to do them in the first place. So these three areas is what really can help you identify the things that you don't want to be doing that you should be doing, the things that will just generally help you anyway, even if you don't desire to do them, and then how we can actually move forward with working on putting all of this stuff together in business life and personal life, building the good habits, eliminating the bad ones, and just generally making improvements in our life. So the first one is basically looking at all of our cravings, and it's looking at the good cravings and the bad cravings. And obviously, cravings is a massive part of habits. In terms of the atomic habits cycle, it's cue, cravings, response, and rewards. So there's normally a cue, which is this kind of thing it's normally like time based, or it's especially with like smokers, it's normally like a time based thing of the nicotine in your bloodstream, how long has it been? And if you're a chain smoker, it might be one every hour or something. But it's normally time based, location based, situation based, whatever it might be. But the craving is one of the most important things to think about, because we need to be aware of the craving to begin with in order to be able to identify that we need to change it. So being able to identify all of your cravings is a great way to be able to make the changes towards working on, building good habits up and getting rid of bad habits. For instance, if you've got a bad habit of, let's say, you're scrolling on social media too much, being able to be aware of the craving before you've actually responded to it is the best thing. If you like, to begin with, if you're just working on you're on your laptop or on your MacBook, whatever, and then you see your phone go off, or you just want to check your phone anyway, the first time you might get it out and then you might just go on it and scroll, and then a minute later you realize you're on social media just doing random stuff. But over time, over the course of days, weeks, and months, maybe even just days and weeks to begin with, you'll actually realize sooner and sooner and sooner, until the point where you're actually just looking at your phone and you realize the craving. Now, to begin with, a lot of us are working on autopilot so much that we won't realize for a good 20 to 30 seconds or more that we're actually doing what we're doing. And then we're like, we're scrolling, let's stop. And then you eventually get to the point, like I have, where, it depends on exactly what I'm doing, whether I'm bored or not bored, where I will just feel the craving to look at my phone and go on it. And I'm like, I don't need to. It's pointless. I know I'm bored right now, or I know I'm just aimlessly doing something in between tasks, or I know I'm overwhelmed by something and I'm trying to focus on a task and I'm getting too it's becoming too complicated. So understanding the cravings is the most important thing for good cravings and bad cravings, because we can build up good cravings for positive things. We'll get the craving to go and work out because of the second point I'll bring up in just a second, but is what helps us with a gym workout. It's what helps us with business ideas and business tasks in work or in personal life, or in, maybe a personal hobby we're working on. We love that painting we're doing. We love that video we're editing, whatever project it might be, creative based or artistic, whatever it might be. Cravings is the best place to start when it comes to identifying bad habits and building new ones as well, which leads me perfectly to the second point, which is novelty. Now, we will get cravings from novelty as well. We will be desired to do something based on novelty. And this is actually the best thing you can do in order to not only kind of, if you're feeling a bit, if you're dwelling or you're feeling a bit down, and to change up your mood, the best thing you can do is create novelty. Maybe go for a drive somewhere you've not driven before, drive a different way to work, drive a different way to the gym, whatever it might be. Novelty is this kind of random desire or random good feeling of this is new, basically. I've not done this before, or this is novel, basically, in the word novelty. And you basically create this just in like initial just feeling that is positive, and it allows you to continue with doing something. And the best way to kind of continue getting novelty from something is to basically take into account something I learned. It's a fancy term. I don't even know if it's completely linked to it, but I learned from the Chris Williamson podcast, the Modern Wisdom podcast, is the Zeigarnik effect, which is basically all about closed loops. So the way it works is if you want to start building a habit around something and you're feeling and you don't want to kind of overwhelm yourself or overload yourself with a new habit, especially if you've suffered with focus and procrastination with habits before, is you only want to do it a little bit. So the same way with procrastination, you start with the most minimal amount. I've made a video on, making a task smaller as well, maybe link in the description if I remember to, by making the task as small as possible. So let's say you want to start reading and you hate reading. So I'm going to start reading 5 pages a day. Such a small amount, you're going to do it in hopefully 5 minutes. Or no, in 5 pages, let's say 20 minutes, right? So you read just 5 pages, right? If you're a slow reader or fast reader, it depends on how long you read for. And what you do is once you've started the task, you will want to carry on. Even if we don't like doing the thing, we will still carry on just because we get into the thing. So once you start, you will eventually carry on, even if it's just for 5, 10, 15 minutes or so, you will carry on. But what you do is you stop yourself from you cut yourself off at a point before you want to finish. And this basically, I believe, is part of the Zeigarnik effect, which is actually based on like a restaurant system of like a waiter remembers an entire order, sorry, before the table bill is closed, I think. So we can use this same kind of mental principle to be able to build up habits and increase the novelty with each time we do a habit and build it up. So for instance, if you're trying to read more, start with reading for 5 minutes a day, and then tomorrow, and you stop yourself at 5 minutes, just a simple 5 minute timer, because you will want to read for 5 minutes more, most likely. So you set a 5 minute timer for reading. When the timer goes off, you stop reading that sentence or that word. And then tomorrow you do the same thing. And you're building up the discipline of that habit, but you're also kind of improving the novelty factor each time, and you're increasing the novelty factor, which allows you to basically create this like desire each time to want to work on the habit more and more and more. And so that's one of the best ways, especially to replace a bad habit. So if you are not wanting to watch Netflix as much, but you want to start reading more or watching educational content as opposed to a bingeable series, you will decide to, right, in order to be able to watch that series, I'm going to do 10 minutes of reading now. So I do 10 minutes of reading, time myself for 10 minutes, and then the reward of 10 minutes of reading is one episode of that bingeable show. And then over time, you build up and build up and build up until the point where, in the end, actually, you start wanting to do as much reading as watching the show, and then maybe the show becomes like a secondary thing you're not really caring about anymore, because you're using the novelty factor and the craving together to build up the habit. And this works with good and bad habits, so it's good to build up the awareness as well. And then, of course, the last thing, more so comes down to if you have limiting or negative beliefs around trying to start something. Especially this applies to like people that have imposter syndrome. So what you want to do is you want to use the comparison here. So if you haven't started something, you want to, and you're questioning, why am I not starting this? Is it just procrastination? Is it something else? Normally we're holding these ideas that we aren't confident enough with something, or we aren't, and that's the main point of this, is confidence. we aren't confident enough with something, or we just lack the ability to be able to pull it off. Because if you were to say, for instance, you wanted to, like, part of the confidence for me is cold calling to, market my agency services. And I realized part of it was purely one, confidence in my abilities and skills to be able to cold call, which naturally I'm not a salesperson, but I have been learning sales skills. And because sales skills are very close to marketing, and marketing being the main service. So I'll be kind of working hand in hand with that. But naturally, I'm not a very outgoing person. So it's been building up that presentation skill on a call as well, and just recording myself. So the confidence was a massive part of it. But it wasn't just confidence in my calling abilities and sales abilities, it was confidence in basically what I was actually offering. And then I started questioning myself, well, I know the service, even though I'm working with, contractors, and I'm outsourcing the service delivery now. I'm still working on client relations. I'm still working on various aspects of the business, as well as mainly focusing on just trying to grow the business and hiring the right people. But I still could do the service delivery if I needed to. I have the confidence in my ability to do that because I have proof of it. So I was just trying to work out every single area where I realized that I had these false beliefs about my own abilities that were making me not want to do the thing. So in the end, it really comes down to looking at different comparisons that you feel confidence in doing. And I even compared it to, like, okay, well, imagine a game or something, or a film, having to break down this or break down that, or having to do this for somebody. You have complete confidence in this because I've been doing it for years and years and years and years, ever since I was like 7 or 8, as opposed to just marketing. Yes, I've been doing it for a few years, but nowhere near as much as like watching one of my favorite films or something. I can talk about my favorite film for literally hours and hours and hours. Yes, I could talk about marketing for hours and hours and hours, but I haven't got, probably half the amount of experience as much as my favorite film or my favorite game, because again, it's been like double or triple the amount of time, because marketing's only been since like my late teens, early 20s, as opposed to films and games that have been almost my entire life. So naturally, there's a lot more confidence there still. So my confidence is still growing in that. So with confidence being the last one, the main objective here is obviously to grow your confidence in something. The first thing you want to do is, just like Alex Hormozy says, stack up the experience. What experience do you already have in the thing? And prove that you actually can do it. Just, look back at what you've done so you can see as proof of what you've done. And then actually analyze all of the things you actually have to be doing. So if you are trying to market your services like me, realize, okay, what do I actually have to do? And then realize I can do all of these very well. And I'm working on improving every single day with these things, at every opportunity I get to improve on them. So I'm working on all of these things. I know I can do them all. So therefore, this is a very false belief I have of it all. And therefore, it's just me not having the confidence in myself yet to be able to do it. So the last thing left there is just purely confidence and sales skills. And yes, I've not done much sales skills in my entire life. I've barely called a few hundred businesses in my entire life in the past like year or two. So clearly the confidence is mainly in that, because I have complete proof in my service and confidence in my service. Now it's just the proof in my ability to actually outreach to people properly and sell them on my service. So for you, it's about looking at the comparison between something that you've maybe done since you're a kid and you have complete confidence in doing, versus the thing you're trying to work on now that you probably still have ample confidence in, but you and proof that you have the confidence to, be good at it and confident with it, but you're now just trying to, realize that confidence and prove to yourself that you can do it. So the main three, to summarize it all, is cravings, novelty, and confidence. And they work in three different areas in your life. They're three different things that work in many areas of your life. So these have really helped me recently kind of work out, one, just how to build good habits, how to work out my false or limiting and negative beliefs, and just trying to work everything together to try and generally improve every area of my life. And I think the most powerful one with, cravings and novelty is really working on your, bad and good habits. You can get rid of one and, add another by replacing them at the same time, which is an amazing thing to stack habits next to each other and generally just work on improving. So hope that helps. Sorry for the long-winded video, nearly 20 minutes long, but anyway, hope that helped, and look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks for watching.